Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. We want to note that this meeting is being broadcast at the direction of the board on the NUSD YouTube channel. The broadcast may capture images and sounds from those attending the meeting. If you'd like to make a public comment on any item on agenda or not on agenda, please see the table at the side of the room for information. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Lametta will now announce items from closed session.
The board met in closed session on the following items: conference with legal counsel, settlement of pending litigation. On August 20, 2024, a majority of the board in closed session voted to approve a settlement agreement with the parent guardian of student reference number 2024-25-2001, who asserted special education claims against the district. The board approved reimbursement for services in exchange for releases and waiver of claim against the district.
Trustee Mack made a motion to approve a settlement agreement stated above. Trustee Miller seconded the motion. We will now have a roll call vote. Trustee Butler.
Aye.
Trustee Gasson.
Aye.
Trustee Jacobson, aye. Trustee Lametta.
Aye.
Trustee Mack.
Aye.
Trustee Millerick.
Aye.
Trustee Pickus.
Aye.
Thank you.
Also, on August 20, 2024, a majority of the board in closed session voted to approve a settlement agreement with the parent guardian of student reference 2024-25-2002, who asserted special education claims against the district. The board approved reimbursement for services in exchange for releases and waiver of claim against the district.
Trustee Millerick made a motion to approve the settlement agreement stated above. Trustee Butler seconded the motion. We will now have a roll call vote. Trustee Butler.
Aye.
Trustee Gasson.
Aye.
Trustee Jacobson, aye. Trustee Lametta.
Aye.
Trustee Mack.
Aye.
Trustee Millerick.
Aye.
Trustee Pickus.
Aye.
Public employee discipline, dismissal, release, information only. Conference with labor negotiators, Francesca Whitcomb, Executive Director of Human Resources and Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, NFT, information only.
Thank you. I'd now ask for an approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Mack. And a second by
I'll second.
Trustee Pickus. Thank you. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda? 7-0. Thank you. None opposed. And approval of consent. Are there any items anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? Trustee Millerick, thank you. And a second, Trustee Pickus. All in favor? 7, none opposed. Next, we have announcements, and we will start with Trustee Millerick.
I had the privilege of attending not opening day for the students, but the first time staff, all 800 employees of the Novato Unified School District gets together. And they had entertainment they brought in from outside. It was amazing, particularly their lead, who is a local Novato resident. So I was more than impressed. It's clearly we ought to put them on retainer.
Nothing to report. I did see a video of the dance. There was a dance, and it was beautiful. Just want to wish everyone a great start to the school year.
Yeah, welcome back to our staff. School starts on Thursday, and I was able to get to opening day and saw the famous dance that occurred. It was really good. It was a great opening day. I think I've been to just about every one of them through my time on the board, and this was a really good one, a good way to kick off the school year, get everybody excited and ready to go, and just to have everybody in one building is just amazing. So I always love it.
Pretty much the same. Super excited about Thursday and everybody going back to school, including my kids.
More of the same. It was fun. Had a good time. Welcome back, everybody.
No report.
Yes, all of those things. Also, I enjoyed welcoming our new staff, and I'm excited about all of the things we have in the works for this year, and I really am thankful to all of our wonderful teachers and staff.
Yes, thank you to our district leadership team for modeling vulnerability and fun. I want to thank our student panel we're really looking forward to hearing more from our high school students. I'm going to be having a student advisory panel or committee this year representing all high schools. Looking forward to that. And then just a reminder that our student board members start in September. So we're really looking forward to hearing their voices. And yes, the first day of school, I'm super grateful for the staff. They are very, very excited and spending a lot of time preparing, kind of like Abby in her own classroom right now. Good luck to you tomorrow. And all sites are open. We had some pretty big construction projects this summer. And so our M&O team and our maintenance team and custodians have been working like full-fledged to get those classrooms and spaces ready for students on opening day, first day of school, which is in 2 days. And I just wanted to take a second to thank Tony Albini. He is our Director of Maintenance and Operations. He's been with us for over 5 years, and his last day is with us is August 30th, and he's just done some great work for us, and we wish him all the best on his next adventure.
Wonderful. Our next item is non-agenda public comment. Seeing none, we will move on. Item 11A, staff report, summer school report will be presented by Dr. Julie Sinyard.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Smith. Tonight, I have the pleasure of kind of giving us a little update about our summer program offerings. And summer programs play a crucial role in addressing learning gaps, providing enrichment opportunities, and supporting student development during the non-traditional academic year. And this year, we were very fortunate and had some incredible programs. And we have had a long-standing commitment to offering diverse and inclusive summer programs that address the needs of all students, including those requiring academic intervention, special education services, and those seeking advanced coursework or credit recovery. And some of the details here, I'm sorry, I did not have all the numbers on our initial document because we were working desperately trying to get some of the kiddos who were still doing credit recovery, making sure we got all the courses in that we could. We still have a couple kiddos who need to finish, so I will give you all that data. Starting with kind of our elementary offerings. And the first elementary offering that we have was kind of a Lou Sutton Summer Academy, partnered also with our Linwood Summer Academy. And the Lou Sutton Academy was partnered with the YMCA as our community partner, and the Linwood Summer Academy was partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma and Marin. And so this is one of the great little quotes. Lisa Heslip, thank you very much for being the principal for Lou Sutton. Her description of the academy: we loved Summer Academy. Each day was filled with engaging and enriching activities. Students spent their mornings with their teacher and YMCA counselors focusing on activities, supporting the essential standards. Each class visited the Makerspace art room for 6 one-hour sessions. Each week was a different art theme lesson, which was scaffolded for each grade level. And we celebrated at the end of the Summer Academy with a gallery walkthrough of the classrooms. It was fabulous. I'm not sure if anybody had a chance to attend, but it was lovely. Kids did all their artwork and kind of discussed it. It was fun. Our 5th, 6th grade students participated in a STEM activity called a thingamajig, and they created inventions that could help keep koalas safe if there was a wildfire. They went on a field trip to San Francisco and presented their inventions at a YMCA STEAM training event. The students spent their afternoons with the YMCA counselors participating in many enriching activities, including the Furs, Scales, and Tails Assembly, the Mr. C Reptile Assembly, swimming lessons at Novato High, lots of arts and crafts, and other STEM activities. And so for our Lou Sutton kiddos, we had a combination of working with our Linwood crew, and we had 263 students who participated in both of the programs. Of the 263 students, our average daily attendance was about 92.84. We'll talk about areas of growth. That's definitely one that we'll have for next year to make sure our kiddos all attend regularly. But with the Linwood Summer Academy, I want to thank Amanda Langford and Lori Hura for being co-principals this year, and our wonderful staff who supported students academically in the morning session. And USD staff was supported by the Boys and Girls Club in the classroom as well. In the afternoon, students transitioned to the Boys and Girls Club and engaged in additional enrichment activities. And some of their highlights included amazing field trips to Spring Lake, the Oakland Zoo, a Giants game, the Marine Mammal Center, and McNear's Beach. And so both of those programs ran for 21 days. The other great programs that we offered was the extended school year program, and we had 66 students participate with an average daily attendance rate of 85.02, another area of growth. But thank you to Carrie Beth McCall, who was the principal overseeing the ESY program, our extended school year. And she said it was a great year. They increased enrollment by 25%. Again, she already had ideas for next year about how we can get 100% enrollment the second a kiddo finishes an IEP meeting, and Dawn, I'm looking at you, and getting them already signed up. So she was all excited in the increase from 25%. They were very fortunate. She said we had no issues this year of recruiting staff. Our staff was super excited to help and support. It was a very flexible team vibe. They had a lot of celebrations. The highlight for the majority of the kiddos was the Fun Fridays with lots of outdoor activities and kiddos getting to interact with different grade levels and really kind of having a good time with their peers. Teachers really got to know the students and the student goals and really had a lot of time to plan for student needs. So that was wonderful having all of our staff early engaged in the process. The first few days, like both of all programs that I mentioned, were a little bit challenging, making sure everybody knew where they were going. But the behavior plans that were established were incredible, and everybody just got to know each other, and the needs were really clear. And in her words, ESY was rocking. And again, she was super excited about the consistency of leadership. And like I said, 100% enrollment next year is the goal. Another program that we offered was AIM High. And AIM High was not one of our extended learning opportunity programs, but this was an organization that is run completely on donations. And we supported AIM High with facilities and custodial support and meals. We had 132 students enrolled, and these are our 6th and 8th graders at San Jose, which completely doubled their enrollment increase. They were hoping for 110. So we had 132 kiddos who enrolled, 117 completed the entire program. So we had a couple kids show up for a little bit and then kind of leave. But a huge thank you to Ben Leach, who really kind of spearheaded that program working with AIM High. And just kind of the demographic of our students who have participated in AIM High, we had 10.7% of those students were from Sinaloa, 78.6% were from San Jose, 4.8% were from Hamilton, and 6% were from other schools or private institutions that other kids came to visit with AIM High and be part of the program. And had a great opportunity to go and watch the kiddos. They were really focused on problem and project-based education. They focused on the humanities. They had a class called Issues and Choices where there was community circle discussions and students were talking about their communities, their identities and well-being, and focusing on college and career goals. Lindsay and I walked into one of the classrooms and the discussion, the level of rigor that was being discussed. Can we join the conversation too? Hold on, we'll keep our mouth shut, but really hard not to engage. Worked on a lot of STEM challenges. We got to watch kiddos trying to see if they could save their egg from being destroyed with their inventions, and just the kiddos were thrilled. Enjoyed the program. Great feedback as well. The kids, the feedback from the students were loved spending time with our friends. The teachers were incredible, and they had a lot of returning teachers from the previous year. So it's really good to establish that. Another program that we offered was at Hamilton, and at Hamilton, the Rise Scholars Inc. held the Summer Hawks program, and we had 150 students from Hamilton participate in the program. And with Rise Scholars, It was very focused on 2nd through 8th grade students. So the first TK through 1st graders came to our program over at Linwood, and the 2nd through 8th grade students stayed with the folks at Hamilton. And their focus is academic enrichment, personal growth opportunities, lots of focused, individualized attention for every student. And students were participating in reading, math, problem solving, science experiments, coding, chess, and many artistic endeavors. There was a personal highlight on personal growth and character development, while students learn to become change makers in the community and see how their presence and advocacy can really make an impact within their community. So thank you to Michelle Huff and the RISE Scholars, another great program. We also had credit recovery. So our credit recovery program was for our high school students who still needed to make up classes to ensure they were on the A through G track. And at Novato, the program was held at Novato High School, and we had, with the Novato High crew, we had 98 students who were actively enrolled with 104 courses completed. At San Marin, the kiddos came over to Novato High. We had 97 students finish 113 classes. And because there's still time, we haven't quite started the school year, we're still trying to catch up a couple other students, so this number might fluctuate again, and hopefully, fingers crossed. But again, thank you to Marie McMahon and Mark Whitburn for organizing this, and all the teachers who participated. And last but not least, this past week, we had Camp N at Novato High School for our students newly arrived in the country and new to Novato High. We had 21 students participate in this program. We had 27 students the previous year, so 21 this year. And some of the feedback I got from newcomers in the LCAP process was we need more of these camps because we have different newcomers arriving at different times for the year. But so great feedback. But the first kickoff was very successful. And thank you to Michelle Cortez and Sandra Ramirez, our community liaison, for really helping support the program. They had 4 Novato High School EL ambassadors. They partnered with the North Marin Community Services and the PTSA, Novato's PTSA. And students were issued Chromebooks, provided with their schedules a bit early, picked out school supplies and some clothing, and had the opportunity to practice their English basics. And each day consisted of academic lessons, a social emotional lesson, an extracurricular activity, and had the opportunity to get to know some peers and build some new school connections. And so, and a huge thank you to fans. Our fans, thank you to Cody, who served over 450 meals per day. In addition to the meals served to our kiddos, we had 30 meals that were sent to the community, and the team participated in daily deliveries to the North Bay Children's Center, to Quality Care, and additional MCOE programs. So thank you, thank you, thank you. They also served meals to Parks and Rec on the Hill campus, and Cody had stated his July numbers were up compared to last year's as well. So that is great news. And finally, for kind of some of our areas for growth, as we kind of debrief of this programming, what we can do better next year, start earlier. Even though we started in January, I just feel like it keeps going, so we need to start even earlier, get everybody squared away. Expand our outreach opportunities. Again, the 100% of ESY, we want to reach more of our students to participate in our summer programs with increased communication as well. Thank you to Michael's Transportation, but really making sure families understand that we have transportation should kiddos need to be transported to other of our sites. We were very fortunate. We had great staff, but again, continuing to recruit our staff and getting even more teachers to serve more students would be wonderful. Continue to diversify our offerings. Did what we offer truly meet the needs of all students? Can we do better? And increasing student and family survey data to hear a little bit more from our families. So that is our big next push for next year. And finally, a huge thank you to everybody, to our students and families who made the commitment to attend, to our incredible teachers and staff. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. YMCA, Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma and Marin, AIM High, RISE Scholars Inc., North Marin Community Services, Play Marin, and Michael's Transportation. So thank you to everybody, and can I answer any questions?
Not a question, but thank you for doing so much additional information on all the programs. I like hearing all the things that were offered and the opportunities, and part of it was my daughter was working for the city of Novato, and so we were at Hill almost every day. And I saw some students there as well. And so, just hearing all of the opportunities that the kids do have over the summer, and especially like the credit recovery, and I love the Camp N. Just really pleased with all that NUSD does to try and support and extend out into our community. And also to Cody for all the food and services provided for the kids as well.
There's so much happening. So much happened this
It's a busy summer.
This is
It was a
lot of
really
different
busy summer.
Things happening, and with so many partners in the community, it's really exciting. I had two questions. One was about when you talked about the credit recovery. I know that one of our goals is to improve the number of students that are A through G eligible. I can't access the note that I was hoping to access. Do we have a sense of, how many of these students are now A through G eligible, but were not prior? So, how does this help us move toward that goal?
I don't have that information, but it's absolutely something that we're looking at, especially as we are really focusing on our data literacy increase for this year. So we'll get all the numbers squared away, and then that will be our big focus as we start looking at our 2 high schools at our DNF list and who we've caught up, who's still in the area, and especially for our kiddos who are 11th and 12th graders, making sure we're targeting them. So I don't have that information, but I can absolutely get that for you in the next coming weeks to make sure everything's been updated and transcripts are shown appropriately.
Great. I presumed it was not just hiding in your head.
I didn't have that one off the top of my head. A little more work to do on that, but
I
glad to get that.
appreciate the attention to that. And then also, when you were talking about the extended school year, you talked about the teachers kind of understanding the students and kind of getting a better sense of where they're at. Is there any plan to transfer the information from the teachers who were working with those students this summer to pass off what they've learned about those students to their teachers this year so that they can kind of continue that progress? Is there a
good bridge
plan for that?
You know what? Not yet, but hey, Dawn, we might have a little conversation after this. I think it's a great suggestion, and absolutely want to keep the momentum going, and especially when the strong connections were made, absolutely, that we can support kiddos from day one, maybe day 2. Let's get everybody in the classroom and then make sure everybody has the information squared away. So, and Carrie Beth will be great and help us with a report with that. I have no doubt about that.
Amazing. Very exciting. Thank you.
I'd like to point out the work that happens in the kitchen, 450 meals. Basically, every child on every campus, I assume the staff gets a sandwich too.
I don't know about that. Actually, I really don't know about that. I'd have to ask Cody on that one.
But sometimes if you're a newcomer or in a situation, you remember that you were hungry long after you remember what you were supposed to be learning or that what was going to go on. And that we stepped forward and delivered the meals and made sure this is an experience where they can pay attention to what's supposed to happen. Is pass on thank you to Cody for.
Absolutely.
And we have the new kitchen, which I assume just makes that all easier and easier for the staff to be able to be productive, and we can do it at an affordable price. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for this report. You will be staying
I'm
with us.
not going anywhere.
No?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Our next item, 12A, is the approval of the Local Control and Accountability Plan, the LCAP, final revision.
Okay, thank you. So MCOE, Marin County Office of Ed, had the opportunity to review our LCAP, and we had one technical issue that requires correction and bringing our LCAP back to the board. We needed to amend our annual update for the 24-27 local accountability plan, as we did not write in a carryover from the prior school year. So huge thank you to Josh for sitting down with me and getting that all corrected and squared away. The number that was missing has been added. The district has amended the plan, the annual plan update, and it is here for your review.
Questions, comments? Yes. Okay, great. Trustee Butler has moved. Do we have a second by Trustee Gasson? Thank you. Before we vote, just kidding, it's gone. Just kidding, we'll vote. All in favor? 7 unopposed, thank you. I'll remember it later and send you an email. My bad. 12B, we have Francesca Whitcomb bringing us discussion action approval of new job description, community school program lead, first reading.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Smith. So this job description being brought forward is related to the recently awarded California Community Schools Program grant that Hamilton was awarded recently. This is a position that was called out and identified in the grant proposal. It will be considered full-time as a 1.0 FTE in the California School Employees Association bargaining unit. As shown on the description itself, we've identified placement at range 36 with a 195-day work calendar. So that provides for roughly a week, a school week before students and a week after students leave, as kind of like the before students and after students transition. This has been reviewed with our CSEA bargaining unit, and they have completed their process in terms of vetting it with their unit.
Board questions or comments? Trustee Gasson?
So I'm good with this. I'm actually excited about the position, but I'd sent you, and I know you responded to my edits. I just think it needs to be tightened up a little bit. I was reading it cold as a person, like, in trying to understand it. And I know that it probably makes sense in the realm of what you're working. But if somebody's taken this position, I thought that we could work on it just a little bit without having any significant changes to the actual position, just partly because it would be something that you would be evaluating the individual on. So just making sure there's clarity on exactly what their role is supposed to be. So
yes, and I did reach out to Sarah Cram with CSEA, and so I'll connect with her about those suggestions. I don't think it should be a big
I know there was just one that Trustee Jacobson we were talking about that I think it was just a misunderstanding. Like, I didn't understand what it means. I think we both, between the two of us, we were picking something else up too. So all really minor.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Other comments or questions? Okay. Would anyone like to move to approve this vote? It will come back as a second reading on consent in the future. Trustee Gasson, thank you. And a second by Trustee Pickus, thank you. All in favor? 7, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is 12C, discussion of board committee assignments for 24-25. Do any board members have any additions, changes to the existing information? Trustee Gasson.
So I saw we have a corrected version, and I thought it corrected what I had a question about, but I don't, what has changed on this? Because it's not, I had questions about those special, I wondered about that, but is that okay, I figured that wasn't a board of, anyway, my change is for the District Special Education Advisory Committee. It indicates on the back page they're not meeting Thursday per month, one Thursday per month. I don't know how we want to phrase it, but maybe, I don't, it's like on Wednesdays and there's no set.
There were 4 meetings in the year, so how about we note it as 4 meetings over the course of the school year?
Because they have some extra parent information nights and stuff as well, but.
I think that the official SEAC meetings will be 4 times a year.
Okay.
And
However
there'll
you
be
wanna put it,
additional meetings as well, yeah. But
Okay.
for the actual obligation here, it would be the 4 SEAC meetings.
Okay, so then I would change it to, well, do we actually even have to identify that it's Wednesday?
No.
Okay, so just do 4, because I don't think the time is right too. I don't remember now.
Okay, we'll make that change. Trustee Lametta?
So on page 4 for the District Student Wellness Committee, it says meet 2 to 3 times per year. Do we know the date, or is someone gonna provide that information
So
later?
in general, this document gets us kind of to a starting point, and then everyone who's signed up for different committees are put onto those lists, and then those dates go out through those lists.
Oh, okay,
If it's not something that's a special cadence that's listed.
okay.
And we do have some of those dates if it helps you decide which committee
Yeah, that
you
would be
might want to
great.
be on. So, Julie, do you have them in your head or no?
Do you have at least the week of the day? Sorry, because I'm on this committee and it's okay. I guess I have an alternate. I have 2 alternates, just out of curiosity.
there's also alternates for all positions in the event that someone can't make it. I'd like to note also that we have the addition of the District Equity Imperative Committee, which has been added, and Trustee Lametta and Trustee Mack have stepped up to join that committee, and there is room for an alternate if anyone feels so inclined. Trustee Pickus, thank you. And that has been added, and we'll add the alternate. Ellen has some information for you.
The Wellness Committee meets October 23rd, January 22nd, and April 16th. So the document in front of you is just to determine which board members are going to be on those committees. As President Jacobson said, the specific dates always come after. So we're not tweaking this document with all of the calendar dates on there. We're just trying to identify which trustees want to serve on these committees from now until December. We'll do this again in January when we have a new trustee.
Trustee Gaston?
Also, I, now that the Eco-Friendly Advisory Committee is here, I'm actually would like to be on that. I sent Principal Nam a message about that.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to be a representative for that committee? We have one other opening and an alternate.
I'm interested in the alternate position.
Okay, great. Okay, and whoever decides after this meeting that they would like to be that second member, they are welcome to let me know.
For the Eco Committee,
Uh-huh.
put me down,
Okay,
because this is good through December. so
Correct.
Put me down.
wonderful.
Thanks.
You'll be at the one meeting.
I'll be at one meeting.
Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna approve this document, and there are a few changes that we will add. Is that okay? Great, even better. It's been discussed. Any other items in regards to this? Okay, fantastic. All right, we are now on to item 12D. This will be the acceptance of the Education Workforce Housing Feasibility Study from Brookwood Partners. Derek Nell, the Director of Staff Housing Development, will be presenting this item, or starting us off at least.
Okay, good evening. It's exciting to be back. This is a big milestone night for us when it comes to education and workforce housing. And I'm going to talk slowly and go through my portion of the presentation because unfortunately one of our presenters has run into some trouble and hasn't arrived yet, but they're doing their best to get here as soon as possible. But I'll proceed as much as I can, starting out with some local information about the school district. I think we weren't expecting the assistant superintendent to be a speed talker the way she was on her summer school report. So good job. I wish I could match that intensity and speed, but we'll see. So my goal is the exact opposite, which is to go the other way and slow down. But so it's a complicated subject. There's a lot of variables. There's much to think about. So maybe slow is a better pace to take. I do want to acknowledge that we have members from our advisory committee and other interested members of the community and nonprofits. We have an interest in what we're doing here tonight. So happy to have them here and look forward to working with them as we go forward. Just a quick update on some of the things that are happening locally and then statewide. Locally, we're working with the College of Marin and the Marin County Office of Education to form a Marin County Education Workforce Housing Coalition. We're thinking that there could be a lot of opportunities on cooperatives with sharing our tenancies and the different properties in different places that may not work out exactly for with that particular district, but might help to solve a broader set of options for us to provide education workforce housing. And then at the state level, recently Superintendent Tony Thurman has had a press conference followed up by a housing summit in Sacramento, which I was fortunate to attend. That included some breakout sessions, but he's going to have a task force initiative put into place, and he's looking to put the resources of the California Department of Education behind the effort of education workforce housing. It's in close cooperation with the California School Board Association, the model that we're following for the process. So that's good news. That particular process came about through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which funded some research through UCLA and UC Berkeley, specifically designed to locate surplus properties that belong to public education or LEAs in the state of California. They identified about 150,000 acres. They think about 75,000, almost as fast as you are now. They identified about 75,000 of those acres to be urban and suburban potential development properties. So that's over 2 million units on a statewide basis in a state that has a definite housing crisis. I think over the time I've had opportunity to mention to you that a lot of our staff are struggling. A high percentage of our staff would qualify for affordable housing benefits in traditional affordable housing if we were able to build it as a state. So the problem's getting worse. The need is definitely there, and Novato Unified is one of the leading school districts working with the state and the county and doing our best to provide workforce housing. So if you'll indulge me, I think this is the most important part about what we're doing, and that's to tell you what workforce housing is about. Education workforce housing helps school districts recruit and retain high caliber professionals in teaching and support roles, enhancing the quality of our education in our community. It fosters a supportive culture focused on employee well-being, maintains a motivated workforce, it reduces staffing shortages and lowers our high turnover rates, brings a sense of connection and belonging, ensuring stability and continuity in our community's education. It reduces the commute times and allows our employees to live near the students they serve. That fosters stronger bonds with our students within the community. And finally, it attracts individuals with diverse backgrounds who might not have otherwise considered living here in Novato, which again helps to enrich our community with diverse perspectives and promotes an inclusive environment. So that's basically why we're here, and there's a staff report that I put out with this presentation that goes into a little more detail. This as though it's a workforce housing we talk about, but this is really about a solution to improve the consistency and the quality of the education in Novato. So tonight's meeting objectives are to accept the final feasibility study and to direct staff to analyze the report and return with recommendations on how to proceed. So it's really important that when we get into the feasibility study, that's going to be slides that are going to be overviewed tonight, that we understand that these are just that, examples. They're scenarios that are developed from samples, and in the particular, there are samples and scenarios that were developed with specific direction from NUSD. So we haven't covered all the options that are possible, and it's important to keep that in mind. That's when we review these conceptual designs and we talk about financing, that this is just an independent objective study as to what's feasible on our properties, but in no way are we choosing any properties for development tonight. We'll be making no decisions about the size or the type of the development that we're going to build, and we'll also be making no decisions regarding how we will come about the project financing for any of these particular scenarios. Again, they're for demonstration purposes only, and to be used as evidence for us to proceed into the next stage. So speaking of stage, I mentioned earlier that we're following the CSBA training steps, and our milestone here tonight is we've completed two of the stages of 6. I don't mind saying we're ahead of the schedule. You'll see that each one of these stages has a projected time frame, and we've been moving along at a fairly good pace. But we're about to enter our 3rd stage, which is development, which is likely to be the most complicated and will require a high level of study, and then we'll also need time to work with our community partners. So there's sort of existential issues that we may not be able to control from a timing perspective, but CSBA thinks that we should be able to accomplish our goals and come up with some construction plans should we decide to do that within a 3-year period, and it would be my goal to do that sooner. Sorry, you guys got. I'm excited. Okay, so just to give you guys an update on a regular ongoing community engagement, we do have 2 meetings planned with our Community Advisory Committee. That's the committee we established back as part of our 2nd stage. And we will be reviewing this feasibility study with them, along with any board direction I receive between now and the meeting on the 23rd. We're going to meet again on January 13th. That'll be an update on to the committee on our planning progress to see where we're at, keeping them informed and and asking for their input along the way. We also will continue with our community outreach plan. This is very similar to the presentations we did in the previous stage, where we went out to each one of our school sites and we did a presentation with the employees at each site that had an interest in workforce housing. There'll be ongoing updates at the district workforce housing webpage. That's also where I'll be posting the locations and the schedule of our upcoming presentations. And those presentations are going to primarily go to site groups again, but it'll also include our service clubs like the Rotaries and the breakfast clubs, and the committees of each one of our sites. And I'd like to get to the booster clubs too, but anyone who has any interest at all in learning about our plans to improve the quality and consistency of education in Novato, I'm willing to bring my slides and answer their questions. So we're going to continue to work hard on that. Also with the help of our communications committee, which consists of our president, Julie Jacobson, and Leslie, our communications director here at the district. We've come up with a plan to distribute newsletters through Parent Square and through email distribution to those individuals that have signed up and want to be kept aware of what it is we're doing. So this was the part where I was going to introduce you to Brookwood Partners. And Alan, we're obviously still waiting for Chris, who got hung up somewhere. So I'm going to keep going. The board asked me to kind of keep going, and I think the earlier slides of the presentation are something I could probably get through, but if you want to come up, I can introduce you, Alan, and if I miss anything in particular, we'll feel free to step in and to make sure I made that particular point. Everybody, this is Alan Katz. Alan Katz is with Brookwood Partners. They're the consulting firm with Chris White, and Alex is not here tonight, looks like, who works with them. But put together our feasibility study and was going to be presenting the options that are within the study. So what we have is we're going to recap our timeline. We're going to go over the bullet points that we heard when we met with you back on June 25th. That was our working session where essentially we put forward some of these conceptual design plans and we got input from you, and we brought that back into the feasibility study itself. We're going to take a look at the housing market in general. We'll have some financial cost analysis on the conceptual design examples that are in the study. And we will also talk a little bit about some operational analysis of the units. And then finally, we'll end with some discussions and comments before we accept the study. So from a timeline basis, you can see that going back to March, we started out with the initial site review and due diligence. We followed up with a staff survey and studied our employee demographics, which we have presented at previous board meetings and are also part of this feasibility study for those who would like to see the results of those. We did, Brookwood provided a preliminary site layout and some unit mix and designs, and identified the site acreage and the zoning controls along building heights and things that you need to know before you can come up with your original conceptual design plans. We brought that to you on the 25th, and that's when we had the little back and forth on what you guys felt was over the top or not going far enough. And since that meeting, there's been a lot more work done on the financial analysis, some market study on where we are today with inflation and how the increased costs. And we'll basically conclude with a starting plan is what I'm calling it, a starting plan to get into the development stage. And Brookwood will help us present this feasibility study to our advisory committee on September 23rd. So, recap, this is what Brookwood heard. This is what the trustees wanted. They wanted to make sure our workforce housing needs are substantial and it's important to address. So I think we're all on the same page about the value of workforce housing. Certain sites seem like stronger candidates to others, but we wanted to have as many as possible remain on the table. I think at that meeting we did decide not to consider the transportation facility off of Olive anymore, so we narrowed our original 6 down to 5. The district should maximize the value of its land assets by entitling these sites rather than selling them off as is. So that's part of the feasibility study. And the trustees would like to consider increasing the target number of workforce units beyond the 190 to 220, which was a number that we came up with in comparison to the Jefferson Unified High School example, where that district built enough units for approximately 25% of their workforce. I'll go ahead and tell you that the many of the other districts that have in the process or have completed are targeting numbers between 5 to 8% of their workforce for housing. And there's different reasons for that, but that's something that we can get into later when we move into the development stage, because we will need to land on a number that we want to produce. The board would like to better understand the costs associated with these projects and the potential financing and sequencing options. So Brookwood did put together some scenarios based on the conceptual design plans that they costed, the expected operational income from that, and then specifically focused on sale of surplus properties as startup capital for these projects. There are many other options and different ways to fund housing, but because it's so complicated and we didn't have the time or the resources to provide you guys with 100 financing options, we basically just sort of focused on one singular for the demonstration purposes of this report. So the bad news. Construction costs have really escalated, and this is probably not news in general to everyone in the room or within the sound of my voice, but the consumer price index is up over 19%, but construction costs have really blown up out of proportion. And when we started this process, even before I officially started this process, we were looking at unit costs and development costs that were 25 to 30% lower than what we're currently looking at. So what Brookwood has done has come up with some numbers that they're going to share with us that take into account a little more stabilization or recovery of these numbers as this particular part of our economy levels out. So I'm going to introduce, you ready to go, Chris? Yeah. All right. So I've gotten as far as construction costs and escalation, and I'm glad you're here because it's going to get more fun after this. But come on over and I'll introduce you. I've already introduced Alan. This is Chris White. I'm sure you guys remember Chris from our June 25th meeting, and he's with Brookwood Partners. And I basically was about to talk about the comparison to the Jefferson Union High School, and I left off right there, but you go ahead and pick up where you want, and we're right here behind you.
Thank you, Derek. running a little ahead of schedule. Good to see you all. We're thrilled to be here. It's been a real pleasure working with Derek and the team on this. There's a lot of great properties here, and we're really excited about this process. I'm going to jump straight into this slide as Derek teed up. So, we've all been living through inflation these past couple of years. It's been on the news and been feeling it in our pockets. The reality is that construction costs in the Bay Area have actually grown at a much, much larger rate than just regular inflation has. And that's affected the housing market significantly. So about, roughly a 19% growth over the last 4 years compared to 29% in construction costs. And so, when we're seeing some of the development costs coming back for these projects, they seem really high. And so one of the things we did to gut check that was we compared it to our Jefferson Union project, who a lot of you have seen, just to make sure that we're in the right ballpark. And we made some adjustments for it. The average unit size and what we're proposing in the Meadow Annex project is a little bit higher than the Jefferson Union project. One of those learnings from that project was that the higher bedroom, the larger units with the more bedrooms had a much higher demand than the one bedroom units there. So paying attention to that, in addition to the employee survey that we did with your employees, that was requesting more bedroom counts, that resulted in a higher average unit size. And the Meadow Annex building is a similar building typology. It's a 4-story multifamily with similar parking solution. So it's a comparable building. And so applying this 30% construction cost growth back to 2000 and then escalating forward a few years to 2027, it actually comes out at slightly lower on a per square foot per unit basis. So that was our gut check that this is in line with reality. But, the costs that you'll see in this presentation are quite high, and so it requires additional funding to make these things work. So just as a reminder, the properties that we're discussing today include San Andreas up north, a Hill Education site, the district office where we sit here today, and then down in South Novato, Hamilton and the Meadow Annex site. And the transportation center site has been removed from this analysis. We're just going to have a quick reminder on what each of these sites are. This is the Meadow Annex site. It sits at the south of the Hamilton School. It's about almost 4 acres. For each of these sites, we took a look at what the views might look like from the 3rd, 4th, 5th stories, depending on what type of building typologies we're talking about. And we all know Novato is a beautiful place, but each one of these sites, you'll see some of these images. Each one of these has really beautiful views of the hills, and I think it's going to be a really impressive place for your employees to live. So these are 3 schemes that we discussed last time we were here. There's a 3, a 4, and a 5-story scheme for the Meadow Annex site. The apartments range from around 60 to 130 units. And the total development costs that we're looking at for each of these sites ranges from $800,000 to $900,000 per unit. And so the total cost is anywhere from $50 to $117 million, depending on which of these schemes we're looking at. And so it sort of depends on the funding that and financing mechanisms that can be achieved for each of these sites, which of the different examples you may choose to pursue, but this helps show what the total development costs would be. And then a future slide, we're going to show a little bit more detail on how we get to those development costs. This is the Hill Ed site. Again, there's some existing educational uses on this site, and the site views here, in particular looking north to the hills, are really quite impressive. A lot of these sites are community facilities general plan designation, and since we last spoke, we've met several times with folks at the planning department to better understand the implications of delivering residential on that site. So the two examples for the Hillhead site are three-story multifamily with 66 apartments and a 30 townhome project on the north end of the site combined with 70 apartment units for a total of 100. And this site, the townhomes are more expensive. What's that?
For our employees that fit middle housing.
Right. Those the townhomes are up in the 1.1 to 1.2 million dollars per townhome cost, and the total project cost for this ranges from 56 to 62 million for example A. And
Hey, Chris.
yeah,
Would you mind if we took a 5-minute break?
sure.
Okay, we have a request for a bathroom break if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Just Thank you, Chris.
All right, thanks everyone. Good to see you. So, yeah, these slides are really just about remembering what we had presented last time in terms of the schemes, what the sites are. This is giving a high level total development cost for each of these schemes. And like I said, in the future slide, we're going to break these down in a little more detail, and I'll explain what goes into these total development costs. But the townhomes are more expensive than the multifamily apartments. They're much bigger, and they're more expensive to build. Uh-oh.
What else could go wrong? It's literally updating, so yeah, I'm using that. That's who. I think it's literally, we just saw it go up there. Acrobat is updating. Get a Mac. This is a PC, so. All right. What else could go wrong?
Could I ask, we have 3 public comments. Are those specific to what you're going to have presented, or if you'd like to come make your comment now, it's general, it doesn't matter about this, please raise your hand and I'll call you up and we can do that now. Okay, great. So we're going to have Dale Klein and then Don Nicodemus do their 3-minute comment. And if there's anything that we can respond to with as it is an agenda item, we'll take notes and maybe our presenter can do so afterwards.
Updates without permission.
Do we want to do that or do you want to keep going?
No, it's up to you.
You're already up. Let's hear it.
Okay, we've got Dale here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to address trustees and staff. I just wanted to say that from my perspective, most of you know I wear a lot of different hats in town, and I'm speaking specifically from my personal perspective, not from any of those hats. But the speed at which this has progressed is very impressive. All the years and years and years we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and made some efforts. This is the first that it actually looks like it really might happen. Between hiring the right person and the right people and the makeup of the board right now and our leadership and staff, I honestly say as I stand here before you, I think this is the time that it's actually going to work. Stay the course, because there's going to be a lot of pressure. Now, once we start going to the planning stages, there's going to be 8,000 opinions. I know that the 7 of you and staff listen to everybody and listen well, especially those of you that I know personally. I trust that you will make the right decision when the time comes, and we'll look at things correctly. So I just wanted to get up and say that. This is, each month, it seems like we're 6 months further down the road. It's just very impressive, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, do you mind waiting, Don? Okay, we'll continue now with our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. This is the Hamilton site. You can see in the site plan on the left, this vacant land here is the area where we're talking about. It's over 8 acres, and again, just incredible views. Particularly looking north, you can see the 3-story housing project that was completed recently on this site. The 2 Hamilton conceptual plans that we presented were 3-story apartments, 162 units on the left. The total development cost from that would be roughly $800,000 to $900,000 per unit, 127 to 140 million total. And then to squeeze some additional units on this site, we proposed a 5-story site with the car barn, and this could range from $800,000 to $900,000 for a total of 200 apartment units, and this would require reconfiguring the South Novato Library. The San Andreas property is, also, has really beautiful views, particularly the one on the bottom. This 26-acre site requires some additional infrastructure costs for the utilities and internal roads on this large 26-acre site. So you'll see in the total development costs here are perhaps the most expensive on a per unit basis from the different schemes that we've described, but it also yields some of the highest unit counts. So here we've excluded the single family homes and duplexes, which we would assume would be sold off to a developer as opposed to developed into workforce housing, and focused instead on the 128 apartments and 52 townhomes in an example A. In example B, this is mostly focused on lower density single family lots, so it only relieves 45 townhomes for that could be potentially developed into workforce housing for a total of 56 to 62 million. Lastly, the district office site where we sit here today is a smaller site. It's 1.6 acres, plus we're borrowing some land from the adjacent city park to be able to accommodate parking. And the 94 apartments that could be built here in a 4-over-1 scheme, 4 stories of residential over one story of concrete podium, would range from $800,000 to $900,000 per unit, or $77 to $85 million total. So, after kind of reminding everyone what the schemes were that we looked at across the 5 sites, we're going to look at this total development costs in a little bit more detail here, talk about what goes into that. So hard costs on offsites. We've worked with the construction cost estimating group to estimate this. The plans are very conceptual in nature, so that's why we're showing a range. Makes it a little bit hard to read here, but it does, indicate that these are conceptual in nature. The offsites are improvements that could be required by the city for example, putting in a crosswalk or changing, adding a turn lane into the site, or sidewalk widening, different things that would happen outside of the actual parcel itself. The project approvals, we've estimated a range based on prior experience with similar projects, but after we refine the entitlement strategy and exactly what type of project we may go after here, this could come down if by using some of the state density laws, et cetera, to streamline the process, or it could be increased depending on how different what we're proposing is from the general plan and zoning. Design fees are all of the architecture and engineering costs to get the project designed, approved, and built. Financing costs, would want to work closely with your financial advisor to make sure we're including everything that needs to be included here, but these are some rule of thumb averages for financing transaction costs. And other soft costs would be other consultants that would be needed to get the project designed and built. Impact fees are quite large. These are charged by the city for the impact that the development would have on the rest of the city. So traffic improvements, delivering parks, increasing storm drains downstream from the project, impacts that this would have to the city. So we'd need to talk more to the city about fine tuning those assumptions. Construction and development management costs are industry standard percentages, and then there's a healthy contingency at this point. So, you can see these are all ranging in the 800 to 900,000 range per unit. And then the rest of the sites are, San Andreas is the most expensive on a per unit basis. Okay, land value forecast. So I want to talk a little bit about the residential land market. So the construction cost escalation that we talked about on an earlier slide has had a major impact on land values. And so there's not a lot of market rate residential land transacting and moving forward currently as we sit here today. Interest rates and a whole host of other factors have had a large impact on that. And so there's not a lot of transactions happening now, and so it's hard to estimate where these land values would be today. So instead, the good news is that real estate markets are cyclical, and so we know that The market will come back. Sort of predicting exactly when that will happen is difficult. But if we start now on the entitlement process, that takes a couple of years, and that could coincide well with a market recovery. So we'd recommend when you're eventually going out to sell these properties down the road that you verify the values with an appraiser. And these are all speculative, looking out a few years for when the market recovers and stabilizes. We've used some industry standards on a per unit basis of what the land values could be at that point. We studied each of the sites for what the workforce housing could fit on each of the sites in 3, 4, and 5-story schemes. And that's what we drew the conceptual site plans for and did all the cost estimating for. And so the logical place to start on land values would be on the lowest density multifamily approach, which is what you see here. This has the lowest forecasted land values out of the different approaches that we looked at. So you can see the forecasted land value here on an entitled basis. Many of the sites have values that would need to be subtracted out of the total land values. So for example, Hamilton has a federal use restriction. So if you were to sell that before the federal use restriction goes away, you need to pay a portion of that to the federal government, most likely. San Andreas has infrastructure improvements that are needed, internal roads and utilities, et cetera, to make that site more developable. So that would come out of the total land value. That one also has some city-owned land, so we'd have to work out with the city exactly how to treat that, but we're reducing some of the value for the city's land. There's transaction costs of selling the property, and then finally the project approval costs to achieve these higher entitled land values would need to be netted out until we get to finally the net reinvestable proceeds. So these are, at the end of the day, if you go through the entitlement process and increase the value, how much from selling each of these sites could be reinvested back into the workforce housing project to offset those construction costs. And then down at the bottom, if we were to, instead of entitling them, just sell them unentitled, there's quite a significant drop in land value from not taking the risk out of the process by getting that entitled. So these are the lowest land values from the low density multifamily approach. We also looked at, these are slightly higher if it made sense to look at 4 to 5-story multifamily. You could potentially fit more units and create more land value from those entitlements. So these are more net reinvestable proceeds for the workforce housing. And then finally, again, since we were focused on the workforce housing multifamily schemes, we didn't draw this or do detailed cost estimating for this, but we think there could be an alternative approach to look at for sale townhomes instead of the multifamily, and that could potentially have much higher land values. So we wanted to include it here as a speculative alternative approach, and we'd want to do some more market validation to confirm that these prices could be achieved in the future. But this assumes instead of going for the multifamily schemes that we've drawn to instead do this 3-story for sale townhome product. And that this one yields the highest forecasted land values and the most reinvestable proceeds that could be used to offset the cost for the workforce housing. This is an example of an operating cash flow. So it looks at these 5 properties, just takes one of the schemes to look at in more detail. It projects the annual total future total rental income that could be collected from workforce housing employees, collecting some other income like parking and laundry and things like that. It's industry standard to subtract about a 5% vacancy rate. Just as units turn over, you're not collecting rent on every unit every month. And then we looked at typical expenses. This is the third third-party property management company that would handle all of the move-ins, move-outs, applications, repairs and maintenance, looking ahead at fixing a future roof, roof repairs, et cetera. And then there's the cost for the repairs and maintenance itself, utilities, insurance, the EHC admin, that's the nonprofit board that would manage the property separate from the school board, if you choose to go down that path. And there's just a little bit of overhead for administrative of that nonprofit. The reserves are setting aside money for future repairs of the building that are not just, routine repairs and maintenance. And then we have a contingency, it's sort of a buffer to make sure that we could always meet the cash flow, meet the debt service payments. And so, a typical way of looking at real estate finance and how projects like this can be developed is looking at the available cash flow that can service a loan, and then calculating what that supportable loan amount is. It's important, again, to work with your financial advisor to confirm all of the assumptions here, but we've seen other districts do this type of a loan. So that supportable loan amount minus the total development costs average that we looked at in the prior slide gives us a funding gap. So this is the amount that would need to be found from an outside source to be able to develop a housing project of this size. Really what it comes down to is the construction costs are so high, and then renting to your employees at subsidized rents to make it a benefit for them, the numbers don't match up. And so there needs to be additional funding that comes from somewhere else. So that's what we're calling the funding gap. So, however, you're probably going to want to know, so how do we do this then? If we have this funding gap, but we have the land, how do we put all the pieces together and make it work? So this is, one attempt at trying to answer that question. There's lots of different variations on this, but this is looking at the opportunity of entitling and selling several of the sites and reinvesting those proceeds into some of the workforce housing on one of the sites. For the purposes of this presentation, we've chosen Hamilton as the one to focus the workforce housing on. The reason for that, frankly, is they're all great housing sites. I think they would all make sense and be great places to live for your employees. But Hamilton makes sense because it has that federal use restriction, and so if you were to entitle and sell it, you would have to pay off some of your proceeds to the government. So why not use that as the one for your workforce housing and save that money, right? And we believe this would require verification, but we believe that the federal government would consider workforce housing for your employees to be consistent with an educational use there. So if we look at entitling and selling off the other three, Meadow, Annex Hill, and San Andreas, and by the way, I should note, for the district office site, we've excluded it from this analysis because the cost to develop the workforce housing is pretty high, and then the cost to demolish and move this district office somewhere else is pretty high. If you wanted us to include it in the analysis, we could, but just for the purposes of this, we've excluded it, and we're recommending holding it as is. For the other four properties that are potentially in play, again, entitle and sell 3, take those proceeds, the net proceeds, reinvest to offset part of the funding gap. For scenarios 1 and 2, it's just seeing how many units can you deliver on unentitled and entitled land. So scenario 1 is saying if you don't entitle it and you get the lower sale price for unentitled land and reinvest that in, we think could deliver roughly 25 workforce housing units at Hamilton. If you take the time to entitle it and sell it for the higher price, that can get up to 43. And then we looked at scenarios 3 and 4, said, well, but we really want to target 150 or 200 or maybe up to 300 total units, right? So then what's the gap that would need to be filled somewhere else? And that's what we're looking at in 3 and 4. So 3 would mean building all of the Hamilton Example A. That's 162 units. Selling the other 3, reinvesting the proceeds in, and then we would still have a funding gap of 51 to 56 million. And then scenario 4, if we went all the way up to 300 units by building Meadow Annex, Hill Ed, and a portion of Hamilton, you'd have a funding gap of 119 to 131 million. And this is, again, looking at the lowest density land values. So if we did the same analysis again with, the slightly higher multifamily land values. So those numbers in scenarios 1 and 2, I'm going to focus on 2, entitling this and land and reinvesting it. That in this scheme, it was 43. With slightly higher land values, it goes up to 50. And then finally, if the townhome scheme, is validated by the market and could work with the higher land values there, it could get up to 72. 72 units of housing for workforce housing. This is looking at the rents that would be charged to the employees and the amount of benefit that they may receive from this. So, the unit mix we're suggesting here is pretty heavily weighted toward there's a lot of 1 bedroom plus 1 bath. So that's a 1 bedroom unit plus a den. It can use it as an office or a play area. And then it's more heavily weighted towards 2 and 3 bedroom units than a typical market rate or affordable housing project would. And that's, again, in response to your employee survey requesting larger units. We did a market survey to look at what those market rents would be. And then the analysis that we've been discussing today assumes just taking the market rent for each unit and removing 30% from that cost. So the weighted, average weighted rent would be about $2,200, starting at, $1,800 for 1 bedrooms. And, we've had other districts look at a 40 to 45% discount to market. But, given the construction costs and trying to maximize the number of units here, where the analysis currently assumes a 30% discount to market. But there's different ways of looking at this. We could talk about, potentially dropping the discount even further, but, there'd be less of a benefit for the district employees. And then we looked at this over a theoretical 7-year term. If employees lives here for 7 years, what is the savings that they could expect over that 7-year period? And it's, $90,000 to $115,000 in total, so pretty nice benefit. All right, there are a lot of words on the screen here. Let me just talk through some of this. The scenarios that we described earlier that showed you could build 43 or 50 or 72 units of workforce housing just by entitling and selling your land and reinvesting in. That assumes no other outside sources. So if we're able to match that with any of these sources, then it could be extended even further, right? So let's talk about what some of these potential sources could be. General obligation bonds are, there's a lot of districts that are going down this path. It's great because it doesn't have to be repaid by the project. It can just be used to plug this funding gap and make the project work. The cons are that it's repaid by the voters. You have to go out to a vote, and 55% of the folks need to agree to, essentially tax themselves to allow that to happen. Sale of surplus property, we've already talked about. If you're not going with just as is unentitled, then there are additional costs to go through the entitlement process. But the good news is that, it would increase the value quite a bit and make up for those entitlement costs. Certificates of participation are really what we're talking about when we're talking about the supportable loan amount. And so those are included in all of these analyses. Again, it's important to work closely with their financial advisor to fine-tune the assumptions around that. And over here on the right are some other ideas. So low-income housing tax credits are the way that a lot of affordable housing gets built in California and America. So this is a federal program that allows investors to purchase these tax credits to reduce their tax burden. It's money for the project that does not need to be repaid. So again, could help close this funding gap. We're seeing some evidence that if it's paired with, well, let me actually talk about some of the cons. It's extremely competitive to get, and it's been especially true lately. There's been a lot more applications for this funding than there is funding to go around, and so it's not uncommon for folks to apply and reapply several 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row, and so that could potentially introduce significant uncertainty into the execution, right? However, we're seeing some evidence that if the district were to sell land and invest that property alongside this, then that could really help the competitiveness of the application for the tax credits. And so that could help sort of potentially move this to the front of the line and help it move faster. One of the other really tricky things about using the tax credits is that it can only be used for units that are for low-income households. And so many of your employees make too much money to qualify to live in units that are funded by this. But on the other hand, you have employees that do qualify. So there would have to be a kind of a comprehensive strategy where perhaps there could be some units or one building that was funded using a combination of tax credits with reinvested land sale proceeds with lower income folks, and then a separate building for the folks who make too much money funded separately, but it could perhaps sort of operate as one cohesive project. And then, to be competitive, there are incentives to sort of cut costs, so that may mean having smaller unit sizes, a unit mix that skews smaller, less parking, less amenities, et cetera. So that's an important consideration. And then finally, there's sort of a whole host of other smaller funding sources. They typically, a typical affordable housing project has a lot of money coming from tax credits and a loan, and then pieces together several other smaller funding sources. If it's structured as a soft loan, which means it can be forgiven, or a grant, then it wouldn't need to be repaid and could go towards this funding gap. The difficulty is they're sort of hard to piece together, and they all sort of come with certain strings attached. So the more you keep layering on additional funding sources, the more it may tie your hands to be able to operate this workforce housing and set your own policies. So that's an overview of some of the financing options. So we've been working on feasibility study, and that's what we're presenting here tonight. Once we sort of hear feedback from you all on your preferences and fine-tune the plan, then there need to be additional pre-development work done to do more detailed due diligence, engineering, and traffic review on any properties that are going to be pursued for development of workforce housing or entitled for sale. You'd want to engage the community and neighbors, further the project conceptual design, and ultimately submit a pre-application for review from the planning. That's a great way to get some early indications on specifics of what the city will require from the project. After that is the entitlement effort. A planning application has a lot of documentation and studies that are needed to go along with it. CEQA, initial study, and potentially EIR, depending on the magnitude of the project, and if it's consistent with the city's general plan EIR. We really engaged with the planning department on making sure we're satisfying all of their requirements, and then ultimately let's go to discretionary review from the planning commission and city council. And after receiving approvals, then you move into design development, which is where you're really deciding, what type of heating system would the project have, et cetera. Construction documents, so that you can go out to contractors for bidding and ultimately issuing permits from the city. construction process is typically about 2 years, and then after that would be the startup and lease-up process. So overall, from where we sit here today, it's probably at least 4.5 years, if not longer, to get to a completed project. And I think we were going to take discussion and questions after this, but I just want to say thanks for your patience for me coming in midway. And it's really been just really a pleasure to work with Derek and the rest of the team here, and everyone at the city has been wonderful. And we're passionate about this work, helping school districts build housing, and we'd love to continue to partner with you on this journey that you're on. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, so much. Questions, comments, and I also really quick want to say thank you. We're so excited to pour through this study. This is really, as was stated by our public commenter, there's some really great synergy, and this is like what we needed so badly. So thank you. It's fantastic. Questions, comments. Okay, we have Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Gasson. We have 2 other public comments, possibly one more. We have 3. Would you like to take those first or hear from us? Okay, I'm seeing some head nodding. Okay, we're going to go to public comment now. We have Steve Harris first, followed by Don Nicodemus.
Steve Harris. I don't know yet.
Not too good with the mic, so. My name's Steve Harris. I'm with the Carpenters Union, Local 35 here in San Rafael. I want to thank you guys for letting me speak tonight. This is a big opportunity for the school district for Novato. It's opening up doors for other school districts. I know this is, I usually speak at different meetings, but this is the first of a kind I've spoke at. So I kind of want to hit some bases on some labor standards like health care, apprenticeship, a livable wage, because one of my jobs is to go out and talk to workers on the other side. And a lot of them don't have health care, or they're making a little bit more than a food server. So, I mean, implementing labor standards would be a great thing. I know we met with Derek, talked to him. I know he's put his heart and soul into this. He's explained it to us. And we'd like to be working with you guys and create that relationship. So, thank you.
Great, Steve. Thank you so much. Next we have Don, and after Don will be Mo. Sorry, too casual.
Hello, Don Nicodemus, immediate past president of California School Employees School Association, Chapter 312 here at Novato Unified. And I wanted to follow up last time. We heard a couple of good comments from some of the trustees. Trustee Mack mentioned that we'd like to see more of a higher percentage of the workforce make this available. I mean, at Jefferson Union, it was 25%, I believe. And it'd be nice to be able to do a little bit better than that, but that's a good number as it is. Also, the idea that Trustee Millerick put forward, you don't want to sell the property too soon, and maybe even after the entitlement phase, it may be too soon. As a consultant in my previous years, I worked for a place called Portola Valley Associates, and they were getting nothing, in reselling land, but once you build the house on it, it makes a big difference. And there, I have friends and associates who had bought property like this, that had a built unit, like over in Emeryville, that the city had put these affordable units on, and it affects the title so that they can't resell it quite as much. There's an appreciation when they eventually resell. And one of my colleagues from my work in hospitals, Lawrence Fay, lives here in Novato, had a unit over there. Because he got started, he was able to sell and buy something in Novato. Similarly, like in San Anselmo, there's these similar kind of units that are discounted. So we really don't want to like try to make a bunch of money up front, sell it off for cheap, and then not have enough money to cover the construction costs down the road. But it is a fabulous project, and in order to do the competition that we need to retain really quality staff, I think of one of my colleagues in the IT department, T.J. Joyce, who was an analyst, supported the financial system here, left after 3 or 4 years here. About 3 years ago, he took a job in San Francisco that paid twice as much. Now, he had his family here, and if something like this was available, he may well have been still working at Novato Unified. So I wanted to thank you for your efforts on this, and definitely encourage you to proceed right away with the development or entitlement phase of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mo Geneva Marsh, please. And then I think we might have Mr. Jolly. Great.
Hello, good evening. Hi, my name is Mo Geneva Marsh, and I'm a trustee with San Rafael City Schools, but I also am your district delegate from Marin County School Board Association to California School Board Association to the state. I like to break down no acronyms, for the general public, you know what I'm saying? Community language. But we are so excited to see that Novato Unified School District, the leadership, the board, the community is rallying around. Also excited that Marin County School Board Association for our kickoff breakfast. And for those who aren't familiar with MCSBA, it is a representation of all of our school districts working together about shared issues that are uplifting to really unify. We're not individual districts. We move as a unit, and it's really exciting to get guidance from CSBA, guidance from other districts to work in partnership. I mention that because we are having the gem of y'all, Novato Unified School District, and your workforce development housing project, as well as Marin County Office of Education and the Oak Hill project. And it's really exciting because the momentum and witnessing it, as one of the other previous commenters said, it's like it will build momentum, hopefully, as a model for other school districts. And a little birdie told me that Derek also was representing at the statewide level at Superintendent's Tony Thurman's Workforce Development Summit. So all eyes are on Novato. And I'm just kicking off because I'm starting my tour, and I take my delegacy really seriously. So I'm going to visit every single school district this year to really connect and double down on the commitment of sharing best practices together as a team. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And our last public commenter, nope, 2 more, maybe 1, just 1. Mr. Mike Jolly, please join us.
Hi, it's always a pleasure to address the board. I've been here for several of these workforce meetings, been working with Derek and Dale and others in the team under Josh, and this is a wonderful idea. It just totally epitomizes that motto. It engages the community and inspires many of us to realize that you're coming with out-of-the-box, novel, so necessary and needed solutions, and it's an empowerment of your staff that you care enough to do this. Now, I have complete trust in the board's ability to make a good decision here and the right decision. I just have complete faith in that. And this is a great project that this city needs. And it's a great use of dormant assets for present benefit, which is, really terrific to do. And hopefully, if the Fed will lower rates in the next couple of years, and if the fiscal government will control the deficit, we could have really good long-term rates that will empower debt structure if you choose to go that way. And you've already been wise enough to not fund, as we've seen some other people do, during this incredibly high and historically high interest rate environment, which would have raised your costs so dramatically and maybe made the projects not workable. So you've shown restraint, patience, foresight, fortitude. I applaud you, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Trustee Millerick first, and then Trustee Gasson with comments or questions.
A couple of points, and then I'll talk later. First is two issues. One is when I got on this board, we sold San Carlos without improvements and basically ended up giving it away. We were under desperate situations, and I still have scar tissue from that exercise, and that was 3 decades ago. Second is in San Rafael at Dominican University, they've sold property which they said was undevelopable, which now turns to be in the news, multiple units of housing that the developer is trying to get qualified for. Our obligation on this board is not just a financial obligation, us as a business. We have an obligation to the community that we represent and live in. And while an outside developer may come in and build a 10-story building for apartments, we're representing the community, and we need to be building housing that serves this community well. We're a public agency board, and we need to keep that in mind. So I would vote for, as long as I can, that we get entitlements on these lands and tie them down so that they fit into the structure and organization of Novato, and that they are therefore bound, even if it's one of the parcels we sell off versus the one that we develop. We do it in a way that serves the community's vision for itself and the financial interests of our teachers both. So that's a bigger objective than strictly financial. That's a community responsibility objective. So I think for now that's it. And Mr. Harris, thank you very much for your comments. I paid for my college education driving a truck as a Teamster, and thank you. So thank you for now.
First, I appreciate all of the additional information you provided in the different scenarios and how to look at this in a whole bunch of different ways. I find it extremely helpful. One of the things that I keep focusing on when I started on the board about 5, almost 6 years ago, and I thought we were going to be kicking off back then, there's a lot of great reasons to do this, but there were 4 core things that I wanted to mention on top of what we've already talked about in terms of why this is such a great opportunity or possibility for the district. And I would say the first thing is that we would be taking a non-performing asset and doing something good with it, and that's a benefit. The second thing would be that I would love to see that we build a place that people really want to be living in. So we don't just focus on the need, but that we create something that people genuinely want to be in. And seeing the views and stuff is a great way to kind of touch on an aspect of something, but making sure that we focus on the needs and making it a positive living environment for our staff and teachers. The third thing is that I'm a financial person. One of the aspects I liked when we originally were talking about this was the opportunity, should the people who are renting want to put money aside, it's a great opportunity to do that. And I come from a banking background where I would love, once we get through all this and figure out where we're going, if there's an opportunity to look at creating a connection with community bank to see if we can set up a savings program where we can also create a loan program where they could then, be a stepping stone for our teachers and staff to move into a house that they so choose. And then fourth, hopefully once, this is probably years away, but eventually start generating revenue, which we can then kick back into the school district for our salaries and stuff. So I know that's I'm always more forward thinking, but those are some things that after reading some of the information here from the survey and comments of why we want to do this, I felt like there's a lot of great reasons, and those are some of the additional ones for myself for why I think this is important. Having said that, I had a couple of just general questions, and I don't know if this is the right time, but I've been thinking a lot about creating that, place that people want to live in. And also, I see Pat Eklund here, and I was at an event with her talking about the housing developments that are coming up and the limited parking downtown. And so I always want to make sure that whatever we do, we make sure that there's, we don't go down to those low minimum parking, like either 1 or less. And I know the plans are for 1.75. So that's an element that I really like. But I started thinking, okay, as we grow as a community, we have the Smart Train, and there's a lot of conversations about e-bikes and stuff like that. What are the housing developments that are being created do for like plug-in vehicles or, I mean, this is just for my own personal knowledge, or e-bike access and that kind of thing to kind of offset some of those parking challenges that may occur? You don't have to answer right now, but those were things that were going through my head in terms of as we look to build. And then one thing that I did want to just verify with you was when we were looking at all of the scenarios, it seems to me that no matter the property that is chosen, and I agree with Trustee Millerick that we should do the entitlement aspect, that we would at least need to have around 1.5 to 1.8 million in funds to support that element on any property, correct? So.
Yeah, that's right. We've not assumed that we know where that would come from. It could be borrowed, but we haven't made an assumption around where that.
No, that's okay. But I noticed that it was no matter which. So we're looking at, in order to have a property that if we wanted to sell it with the idea of the entitlements, it's around 1.8. But I think too, I don't know if this counts, but the fund that we currently use for the developer fees, I don't know if that counts towards something like this or how much. No, it doesn't. Okay. Okay.
I would say that there is a possibility that it could be streamlined once we kind of land on a strategy. There could be ways to streamline the approval process, but that's what we've included for now.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. It's a good, because I mean, to me, that's like a starting point of what we need to do if we wanted to sell something to then use the money to do something. Like that's where I see it originally starting, is we need about $2 million. Okay.
I could kind of briefly address the transportation question. I know that for Jefferson Union, we looked at possibility of doing van pools, since the teachers and staff who live in the building are kind of going at the same time every day to the same place. I think I don't think that's currently up and running, but it's something that could definitely be explored. We looked at working with the county transportation folks to purchase e-bikes and have them available for district employees living in the building. And then generally, we would assume that, California code requires certain percentage of the parking units have access to e-chargers for electric cars. And so at the minimum would of course be meeting that code, and then putting in additional charging stations is just a little bit of an extra cost, but it could be accommodated.
Just a question on some numbers. I'm digging into the report a little bit and just trying to understand low density versus medium density and the unentitled forecast values. And I would think that they wouldn't change between the two scenarios because there's no entitlements, but they are changing. So can you talk me through that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that we discussed. I think it's just conceptually, if the market in the future were to turn around and support higher density 4-story or taller buildings, then the person looking to buy that unentitled land could be thinking about a more dense project and therefore attribute more value to the project. But we're looking out a few years and trying to forecast exactly what that market recovery and stabilization will look like. But it's actually a personally reasonable question to ask.
Okay. I think we have a lot to digest, so that was great. Thank you so much. I think we'll just move to accept this report. If anyone would like to make that motion. Trustee Millerick, thank you.
Could we, although one of the directions is to have staff come back with so I want to make sure that that's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, we're working through agenda planning just to find the right time for that, but I think it will be in the near future.
Okay.
Can we finish our first and second of this motion before we have more conversation?
I can second it.
Thank you. Trustee Butler, thank you. Okay, Diane, Trustee Gasson, did you have something?
Something about that just triggered some other comment. So the models that you have for the financial scenarios and construction costs, I know we've kind of danced around a little bit. My husband's in startups and keeps talking about how the election's kind of making a lot of people nervous. So I would assume these models are easily like adjustable, or, you know, in terms of like once we get through the end of the year and elections to, you know, update numbers as we look at this in the future.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean,
I'm just
we were
thinking
presented with a lot of illustrations of possibilities versus this is exactly what will happen.
No, I know, and I was just kind of indirectly, you know, talking about how I know things are going to change anyway, but I feel like it just seems like such a hard time to be predicting anything for a lot of reasons.
Right.
So, okay, and the models being easy just to kind of tweak and not stress you guys out on all the, because there's so many different models in here too, you know.
Yeah. Another comment from Trustee Millerick?
Sure. Before we vote, I would like to acknowledge Dean Mosier left. Other people are sitting in this audience who have served the financial health of this district. It's not just the board, it is the community that's got financial skills and strengths and construction skills and strengths. And Derek has reached out to them. Thank you, Derek. And I look forward, they're sitting in the audience. I look forward to us continuing to strengthen our decision-making process and consideration with community involvement. And thank you, Derek, for leading that.
Definitely. Good point. Other comments before we vote? Okay, we are voting to accept this workforce housing feasibility study. All in favor? 7, unopposed. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Lots of progress. Lots of progress.
Okay, we will see you at our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 10th, 6 o'clock. Meeting adjourned.